Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
Come on now. Come on in. I gotta do it again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm waiting. Ready, steady, and go. Good morning. Yes, I was having fun with my my Stream Deck Elgato. We are here for the trial of Natalie Cochrane. Good morning, Anna. Did you like my rooster? Look at that. Yep. Oh dear. Oops. Back again. How are you? Yes, we missed you the last couple of days. Yes, it's been fun. This is a cracker. Good morning, Teresa. Did you see my cock? You ready? Yep. It's still itching. Yeah. Never mind. I don't know what all this hullabaloo is about with keep getting these notifications about Aussie. I didn't think Aussie was into drama, but seems there's a lot of it nowadays. Well, you'll have to find one, Christine. Right, so today is the second half of day 4. We got through half of it yesterday. I was spewing because as soon as the lunch break finished, the medical examiner came on, and that's what I've been waiting for. So I really, really, really tried hard, and I did not watch it. So, but it was hard. And then Tan came over this afternoon, and I went to put it on. I went, no, I can't. I've got to watch it. So basically, let me just turn this fan off. Oh, not up. So, Natalie and Michael were a married couple, both involved in this PONZI scheme. Now, PONZI scheme is it's like it's a fraudulent thing where that you get invested and then you look like you're paying them dividends, but you're not. You're actually getting money from other investors, and it's just a big ripoff. So they ripped off their families, his family and hers, and I think even her sister was like $500,000 nearly. So Natalie was convicted, and she's currently serving 11 years in federal prison. Michael, this particular day, became unwell and gradually got worse over the day, lost consciousness. He hated hospitals, so she didn't want to take him to the hospital. They eventually took him down to the hospital. His blood sugar was only 21. They don't know how long it had been that way. They gave him glucose at the hospital, and his sugar went back up, and then it went back down again. So what the state is claiming is that Natalie Cochrane allegedly injected him with this quick-release insulin, because she was not only a pharmacist, but she was a diabetic educator. So this short-acting insulin only sort of stays in your system for about the 5-hour mark. And this was up to 12 hours later that his blood sugar was down, but he hadn't eaten anything either. Now, it also turns out that he was taking some kind of supplements. We don't know what they are. They haven't been mentioned or named, but he did have to import them from Mexico, which is a bit weird because he's got a wife as a pharmacist. So, she'd be plugged into all of those channels to get supplements, so it have to be something dodgy. But he was also a bit of a bodybuilder. One of the vials they found had a steroid in it, but it wasn't an anabolic steroid. It was for like clearing up your chest. It was like a prednisolone, an anti-inflammatory. But it wasn't supposed to have that in it. He thought that he was injecting what's called clomiphene. Now, clomiphene is generally used as a fertility treatment drug for women that have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it ripens up your eggs and allows you to ovulate properly. And it also treats male, they call it gonadotrophism, which is it's like a group of symptoms which can include erectile dysfunction, libido, that type of stuff. So it raises the testosterone levels. So that's what he thought he was injecting with, and it was actually this prednisolone. Now, prednisolone can affect your blood sugars as well. So it's really unclear. There hasn't been any proper evidence presented. The actual insulin bottle they examined it was examined by a forensic examiner, like chemist, you know what I mean, biologist. So, but they didn't check the volume and they didn't check the concentration. Anyway, then it was examined by an FBI specialist who specialised in weapons and tool marks, and he said that it hadn't been punctured. So it's all speculation and supposition. I have no idea what they're doing, because they were going to forensically test the ingredients. You would think at least you would see how much the volume is compared to what was in the vial itself and what the concentration was, so it wasn't diluted with water or anything like that. Just ridiculous. So he ended up passing away, and they've charged her with unaliving. So we are now up to the medical examiner. This will be interesting, because I'm assuming, because Tana and I was talking about this afternoon, I'm assuming that they would have done, because, of his age and the sudden nature of his death, they would have done an autopsy then and there. But they also exhumed him 4 months later and did further testing. So he eventually, I think, died from either a contribution of kidney damage and fluid on the brain. So that's where we're at. But the medical examiner hopefully will shed some light on us. Oh, good morning, all. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Anna's back. Morning, Tricia. How you going? Udi, how you doing? I haven't even had a chance to get on Discord yet. We've got a brand. Did you get my email, Anna? Brand spanking new Discord server. I'm busy planning out that. You got your earphones on today, Udahat? Right. So I've talked enough. Without further ado, yes, we do. I will send her a message on Messenger. And yeah, remind me later. I've got some updates too. I'm hoping Tan's going to pop in. She said she might pop in at some point, so keep your eyes peeled. Let's do it, shall we? Now, where is my preset? There we go. That one. Okay. Ready, steady, spaghetti. Let me know if you can hear it. They're not saying anything just yet because they're waiting for the jury. Tell me that's muted as well. It is. Elizabeth.
Members of the jury, we have been wrestling with issues of high technology, as you might ascertain.
Story of my
I'm
life.
master of low technology, and this little baby is the limit of my abilities in terms of dealing with technological issues. I bought this at Walmart a few years ago, and I found that it's very convenient to give you guidance. It usually tells you yes, no, or maybe. And sometimes it comes into play every now and then. That's a joke, of course. We are ready to go forward now. We have the state's next witness on the board. Also, the defense expert is listening by telephone. If you'll call your next witness, please, Mr. Truman or Ms. Acorn.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. PIOTR KUBICZEK to the stand.
All right, Dr. KUBICZEK, would you please stand and raise your right hand?
He's on Zoom, I think. And I think
Do you
this
swear
might be
or
the
affirm
state's
to tell
case
the truth,
finish.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
No.
Yes, I do.
All right, you may be seated. Proceed, Ms. Acorn.
Doctor, can you hear me all right?
Oh.
Yes.
I didn't
Could you
do
please
this
state and
very
spell
well.
your full name for the record?
My name is Dr. PIOTR, PIOTR, KUBICZEK, KUBICZEK.
And doctor, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed at the West Virginia Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Charleston, West Virginia. I'm first deputy chief medical examiner.
And about how long have you been a medical examiner?
I've been working here since 2017, so it's almost 5 years.
In your best estimate, about how many autopsies would you say that you've performed?
Correction, almost 8 years.
Terrible picture.
I have performed altogether in my career more than 6,000 autopsies.
Dr. KUBICZEK, where did you attend school?
I attended the medical school. It was
Good.
university, the medical university of Warsaw, Poland. And then I started graduate medical residency. It was pathology residency in Muncie, Indiana. This was Paul Memorial Hospital. Then
Please,
I
yeah.
proceeded to
Stop. Aww. You don't have to do that, sweetheart. Thank you. You just want to see my thing, don't you? Where is it? Hang on.
Shout out to the person that just gave us a super chat. This community is just the best. Love you all the different.
I love that. Thank you, sweetheart. You honestly don't have to do that at all. I do not expect anything. That's lovely. Thank you. You guys. You're going to make me cry. I actually got another pay today. Like, I got paid, like, I think on the 6th of January. And I'm like, oh, cool, $110. That's awesome. You know, that pays for my my internet and my subscriptions and stuff. And then I got paid again today. I'm like, what the fuck? So I actually still have to go into YouTube. Obviously, I pay a lot of attention to to my to my analytics, but oh yes, I've got to. Yes, I need to. And that's got to be done within a 12-month period, which takes me to the end of February, early March. So yes, I need to get to 1,000 by then to meet their criteria, and that way I get the full monetization. Blah blah. So yes. How good are they? It was actually fun. Going over to RA, like he gets a notification up in his chat box. I didn't realize, and it all his mods get it as well. So not only do you get that, and each mod then says thank you, and then he normally says thank you as well, and then everyone else comes in and does the we were defense restrained. So he's got like I don't even remember him, but he's got tons and tons of subscribers. But I'm sort of like his little protege. Even just to like pop in and say hi and then bugger off again. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to stay there, although he is a good channel. He's just finished the oh, I can't remember the name of it. It was the other one that was on with the Asian looking guy. I can't remember his name. Yes, that's the point there. So if we keep doing that on a regular basis, then yes, either we get a bit of recognition on his channel and get our name known, and or we he can send people our way. So who's Jason? Who's Jason? I'm having one of those brain fart days again, so I don't even know. Oh, yes, okay. Jason Chen, is it, or something like that? I can't remember, but there was a verdict. Yeah, please explain. I think there was a verdict yesterday because he was on verdict watch when we raided. But it's nice to keep in touch with them and just to pop in and say hi. And then I jumped in on Mandy and went hi, gave her a super chat, and buggered off to bed. Yeah, it's all about networking. That's why. And we should all support one another, you know? There's no reason why we can't. And there's plenty of room for everybody. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, obviously. And yeah, other people are not everyone else's cup of tea. So yeah.
Study
their own love.
pathology. It was my fellowship at Montgomery County Coroner's Office.
Looking forward to this though.
Do you have any work experience prior to being a medical examiner for the state of West Virginia?
Yes, prior to work here in West Virginia, I worked in Nevada. I worked over there at Clark County Coroner's Office in Las Vegas, and I worked at Washoe County Medical Examiner Coroner's Office in Reno, Nevada. And before that, of course, I worked at
busy
Clark County Coroner's Office in Dayton, Ohio. And before that, I worked at the residency program. It was Fallen Memorial Hospital in Muncie, Indiana.
And are you currently licensed to practice medicine in the state of West Virginia?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any teaching experience?
Yes.
Could you just briefly lay that out for us?
Since my residency training, I've been teaching medical students and residents in practice of autopsy and pathology. And then now I teach the medical students practice of forensic pathology here in West Virginia.
And outside of that teaching experience, have you given any presentations in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes, it's a part of it was part of my work to give presentations, for example, in Nevada, about the cause and manner of death, different types of causes of death, and how they refer to manner of death.
Are you a member of any professional organizations or committees?
Yes, I'm a member of International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners, and I'm a member of College of American Pathology, and I'm a member of Association of I'm American Society of Clinical Pathologists.
Your Honor, subject to voir dire by the defense, I would request permission to treat this witness as an expert in the field of forensic pathology under Rule 702.
All right, Mr. Selden, do you wish to engage in voir dire of this witness?
I just have a few very brief questions.
Very well.
Dr. KUBICZEK, have you published any articles, books, or anything of that nature?
During my forensic pathology fellowship, I was co-author of article on toxicology involving the pediatric population in Montgomery County. Besides that, I published, presented a letter to editor on injuries of residents that occurred during the autopsies. Those are the most important articles or the presentations in journals.
All right, thank you. And Dr. KUBICZEK is certainly acceptable as an expert in forensic pathology.
All right, the court declares Dr. KUBICZEK to be an expert within his field of forensic pathology. You may continue, Ms. Akert.
Dr. KUBICZEK, did you have occasion to perform an autopsy on a Michael Cochrane on or about September 4th of 2019?
Yes.
And did you generate a report following that autopsy?
Yes.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to have the autopsy report marked as State's Exhibit 20.
Okay. Thanks.
Now, doctor, that autopsy was performed approximately 7 months following Mr. Cochrane's death. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you explain the long window between the death and the autopsy occurring?
Initially,
Well, didn't do one initially.
Mr. Cochrane's death was considered a natural death. So the hospital and the hospice actually did not report the death to us. Later on, the law enforcement became involved, and it was determined that the postmortem examination should be performed, and the court issued order for exhumation.
Yeah, he was
And
exhumed.
then I performed the autopsy on exhumed body, Mr. Cochrane.
Right.
Did
No,
you review
that's-
any outside medical records when you performed this?
That's a shame. That's a bloody shame, because you won't be able to find any puncture wounds in the skin. There'll be too much what do you call it? Decomposition. Bugger. Well, I don't see how. I honestly don't see, if they can't show that, how they can prove it. How they can prove that she gave him anything at all.
Autopsy?
Yes.
Can you review what those were for us?
There were records from Raleigh Hospital, and then CMC Memorial Hospital, and those were the major sources of information.
And when you performed this autopsy, were you looking for anything in particular?
When we perform autopsy, we look for the evidence of natural diseases on the surface of the body, and then inside cavities of the body. And of course, we look for the evidence of injuries on the surface of the body, inside of the body. The body that I received in coffin, it was already moderately decomposed, and however, it was also post-status embalming. And this kind of helped to preserve the internal organs. The process of embalming helped me to visualize better the organs in the body that was on the outside of this was moderately decomposed. And I performed as I said, the external examination, internal examination, and I did find that he had cardiomegaly, that means a large heart, and obviously there were those
You all understand that?
changes.
So he was embalmed. So the embalming process helped save the structures of his internal organs fairly well. But outside that, he was fairly well decomposed. But he also had an enlarged heart.
Present, and I sent out tissues that obtained during the autopsy for toxicology examination. Basically, the toxicology results showed that there was no alcohol, there were no common drugs of abuse. We also tested for heavy metals, and basically at that point, after reviewing the medical information, clinical information, after reviewing the autopsy findings, toxicology findings, I came to a conclusion that the cause of death is at this point undetermined. I could not find basically cause of death beyond certainly the medical science.
You answered my next 4 or 5 questions for me right there in that answer.
So,
Dr. Kubicek, has anything come to your attention since originally performing the autopsy?
why did the state think they had enough then with all this? There's nothing. Nothing. Why didn't they close the case after that? I have no idea. They've got nothing. Yeah. I mean, half of the initial testimonies were from bankers. Like,
Autopsy that would change the
no
opinion
way.
that you offered?
No.
And
Yeah.
had you been
it
looking
is.
for anything specific at that
There's
time?
not even a motive, Anna. Like, there wasn't an insurance policy. He was in the business, involved in the business, so it wasn't like, he didn't know. Like,
As in this case, we're talking about exogenous insulin administration.
the only thing that I think she's done, like they might be able to get her on, is the fact that she let him go so far before, and I think someone else had to call the ambulance or someone else took him to the hospital. Like, she waited until he was unconscious before someone did anything. And she's claiming that he hated hospitals and never wanted to go, at which a few people have testified to on the state's case. So I wouldn't even put up a defense for this. Why fill in the gaps? The gaps are the holes of the doubt.
Would you have performed any different testing that you did not perform with the original autopsy?
Actually, no, because the body was already moderately decomposed. It was almost 7 months after
7 months.
death.
Well, can you imagine the stench?
Looking for areas of, for example, insulin injection.
Yeah. You won't be able to find it.
The presence of insulin in the immune system was basically not possible at that time.
Oh, Anna, did you get my email with the Discord link, the new one? You're Anna Charms, aren't you, on Discord? Because we have a brand new channel. Brand spanking.
But we have to understand he spent a few days in the hospital, and later on he was obviously buried. So lots of the evidence that would help to determine if there was actually insulin used was not available anymore during the postmortem examination.
Thank you, doctor. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Selden.
Can I have a moment to speak to my co-counsel?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Dr. KUBICZEK. My name is Stanley Selden. I am co-counsel for Natalie Cochrane, and welcome this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, you conducted, I'm gathering from your answers, a very detailed and thorough examination of Michael Cochrane's body when you received it, and it was exhumed 7 months after his death. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you said that you reviewed the medical records from Raleigh General Hospital and CAMC in the course of your autopsy. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your autopsy report, you have a list of diagnoses that I believe you received from the discharge report of CAMC. That's on page 5 of your report. Is that where those diagnoses came from?
Yes.
Okay. And the clinically documented diagnoses were that the decedent was unresponsive at home during unclear circumstances. That's the first one, correct?
Yes.
There was a reported prolonged time of unconsciousness, correct?
Yes.
You list in number 3 that there was use of testosterone augmenting supplement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Prolonged hospital stay, and then you list cerebral edema with hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. That's fluid on the brain and swelling of the brain. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes.
You list hypoglycemia at the time of admission. You do not know the cause of that. That's just the discharge note, correct? There was a history of seizure disorder and diagnoses, correct?
Yes.
And he was in a coma, right?
That's correct.
Now, there was noted in your autopsy and on these diagnoses that he suffered from cardiomegaly, which was an enlarged heart, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
After all these exams, all this review of the medical records, your very thorough report and toxicology, etc., you found that the manner and cause of death was undetermined, correct? And undetermined means you don't know why he was deceased, and you couldn't tell from the autopsy, correct?
Yes. That's correct.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Redirect, Ms. Akron.
Dr. KUBICZEK, you analyzed the organs of Mr. Cochrane, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you locate any tumors on or inside of the body or on those organs?
No.
And the hypoglycemia that was listed in those records, would you consider that profound hypoglycemia?
Hypoglycemia is less than, I'm not really a clinician, treating patients, live patients, but it was, at the time of admission, was significant.
And the information that you received in the medical records, do you know the original source of any of that information?
I was testing down at the CMC Memorial, the follow-up testings, but that was the medical records. Those were the sources of information. Obviously, I could not verify this during the autopsy.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Selden?
Very, very good.
Go ahead.
Dr. KUBICZEK, the reason you couldn't find tumors, microscopic tumors, et cetera, because this body was 7 months old and the organs are the first thing to decompose. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
Anything, Ms. Acord?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. You are excused.
Thank you.
And I actually think that might be.
Call your next witness, please, Ms. Acord or Mr. Truman.
Your Honor, our next witness is currently on his way into town from Dallas, Texas. We do not anticipate that he will be here before the close of court today.
All right, and you have no one else that you could substitute?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, members of the jury, you've heard that we've run out of witnesses for the day. And so we are still on the state's case in chief, which means that we will start back up in the morning and continue with the trial. I will try to have something good in terms of a snack for you in the morning. I think I'll spring for sausage biscuits, if that's agreeable for everybody. Does everybody like sausage and biscuits? Okay, I will have that for you in the morning, and it will be waiting on your table whenever you arrive before 9 o'clock. Please do not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. This is a dangerous period because there is some great interest in this case. And I warn you not to watch any portrayals of the case on television, online, or hear anything on the radio, or read anything in the newspaper. All of those people will be trying to gather your attention, and you must resist so that you can make a fair and impartial decision at the end of the case. All right, enjoy your evening and your afternoon off, and I'll see you in the morning at 9 o'clock. You may follow the bailiff to your jury room. All right, are there any matters that we need to take up out of the presence of the jury at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, I seem to have slipped up one more time, and I would request that State's Exhibit 20 be entered into evidence.
No objection.
All right, there being no objection, State's Exhibit number 20 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, nothing on the merits, but if we may have a little sidebar on the planning of the rest of the week here as far as witnesses.
All right,
I would
come out.
appreciate that.
Mhm. Right. Sorry. Get out of there. Okay. Yeah, no, finished for the day. All right, let's get to day 5. Where did I hide you? Oh, you're here somewhere. Where are you? I've got so many playlists. It's not funny. I'll get rid of that. Don't need day 3. We've done that. Need that. We've done that. That was day 4. All right, day 5. Wow. Oh, okay. So day 5 is today. So, oh, we're only like a few minutes behind. Okay. Way back. Oops. Quality. Okay. This is day number 5.
Be admitted into evidence.
And we
You're
are
welcome. Any other matters before we bring out the jury?
We need to make sure that Dr. Banerjee is connected.
Okay. Will your energy on, I think. Well, we are a little deficient in that department. And so if it'd be okay with you, can you just listen by telephone?
Oh, sure.
All right.
we're like a minute and a half behind live.
All right. Thank you very much. Bring in the jury.
Bring the jury. Well, we'll probably be right on time once the jury gets in. Oh, what have I missed? What have I missed? Where did you all? You're all chatting without me. Yes. Yes, me too. Teresa and I yesterday had a private message thing, like a DM, and we were just going through all the GIFs and sending each other the funniest pictures. But we can. But Tan and I were having a chat today and talking about what we're planning on doing. So we're going to have like a regular segment. Excuse me. So every Tuesday, from the 4th of Feb, so not this coming Tuesday, the following one, we are going to have what's called Tandem Tuesdays. So Tuesdays will be a dual stream with Tan and myself. Hang on. I may as well bring myself up so you can see me. So yeah, so Tuesday will be Tandem Tuesdays. And we are going to try and focus on some Australian stuff in the tandem, in the dual stream. So we are starting off with the Gangland Wars. Well, we did Lindy Chamberlain, but yes, the Gangland Wars. So that, like, there's almost an unlimited amount of content there, especially in Melbourne. And it's a really, really interesting story. It's, yeah, you can't make that shit up. So that's where we'll be starting that on the 4th of Feb. And we've got a bit of research to go into, but it's all about, I don't know if you've heard about Mark Moran and Jason Moran and Tony Mockbell and Mick Gatto, Carlton crew. Yeah, there's a whole heap of, it sort of intersperses right throughout Melbourne and up into New South Wales. But Carl Williams was one of the key players who was supposedly working for the Morans and cheating them out of their ecstasy pills. And he was married to Roberta, and I'm friends with Roberta on Facebook. So guess who sent... I became friends with her like when I was watching, because Australia did the this TV series called Underbelly. And it was a fabulous series of all of the different, I mean, it was sensationalized. It was, I don't know how much truth was based on, but of course it was an element of it. But it was great. It was a great series. So what I thought we could do, as we're going along with the dual stream, we can get on to, because they've set it up for me, we can get on Discord afterwards and all watch a series of Underbelly together for nothing. How cool is that? So yes, the the defense attorney got the dipshit award yesterday because he was standing at the lectern and he just went boonk and headbutted the microphone. It was so funny. I made a short of it. It's hysterical. Yeah, I actually thought he was drunk because he was sort of a bit unsteady, and then his hand was like, oh, and then he went. And your blood sugar ever get that low? Not if you're not diabetic, really, no, because your pancreas it makes insulin. That's its job. So basically, if you've got diabetes, your pancreas doesn't work properly. So you don't produce it. So you have to take it artificially and break it down. So that's the issue with diabetes. So you ingest carbs, which then convert to sugar, or if you ingest sugar, your body can't break it down. So you end up hyperglycemic. And if you have insulin, that's why you have it just before you eat, so that when you're digesting, your blood sugar stays at a regulated level. But that takes some fine tuning. You've got to work out how many carbs are in there and how your body responds to it. And generally, if you've got type 1, you have to have the insulin. Type 2 is generally able to be managed with diet, just keeping an eye on it. But type 1, insulin dependent. So you have to have 3 generally short acting, or you have a short acting before any meal, and that covers you for that meal. And then you have a long acting one generally overnight to keep your blood sugars regulated. But if you don't, you can end up with what's called ketoacidosis, or an acidotic state, and you can become in a diabetic coma. So the same happens with what I've got. So I've had to take corticosteroids for 14 years for the arthritis, and your adrenal gland produces cortisol, which is cortisone. So that's when your body has that fight or flight instinct, your adrenal gland clicks in and reduces adrenaline and cortisols. I don't have that. So if I get stressed or anxious or, scared, whatever, my body basically sucks all the sugars and energies out of the cells and then dumps me in a heap. So if I go, oh my God, I'm falling in a heap, yeah, it's literally bedridden for at least a day because I don't produce any cortisols. My adrenal gland does not work. So if I don't take prednisolone every day, and I have to schedule it over the day so that I try and keep my levels consistent, I will go into what's called an Addisonian crisis, and it's the exact same thing as a diabetic coma, basically. So, yay for me! But yeah, disability insurance scheme, that's not permanent. Fucking idiots. I went off on a little rant there, didn't I? Sorry about that. My impression is that it's pretty rare. I don't. I wish I had sausage biscuits. What? What the hell are sausage biscuits? All right, you're gonna have to show me a picture of these things. What the fuck is a sausage biscuit? I'm not going out. It's only 11 degrees today with a sausage. What the fuck? What's a sausage biscuit? It snowed in Florida. Oh, you said it wouldn't yesterday. Teresa said you were forecasting. You went, no. Wow. Did you take a video? Did you get some pictures? Did you make a snow angel? Yeah, see, you did. So it wasn't snow as far down as you were down at what is it? I can't think of it. Yeah, brain fart day. I keep thinking Key West, but it's not. It's other side. West Palm Beach. Yeah. Actually, that's a good pause. I've got her on. That's a good pause. Good picture. Well, that's the first time I've actually seen her smile. She's had a resting bitch face most of the time. I don't know. Yeah. If she's prepared to rip her family off for millions, then look, she could be capable of anything, couldn't she? Yeah. I've been told I got a pretty mouth. You're terrible, Muriel. I want to see a sausage biscuit picture. Okay, I'll Google it. All right.
What sort of professional training do you have?
Professional training includes medical school from the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, which is the military medical school in Bethesda, Maryland, a transitional internship, a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology, and a fellowship in forensic pathology.
And where are you currently employed?
I currently work as the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner at the Fort Bend County Medical Examiner's Office in Rosenberg, Texas, southwest of Houston.
Prior to your current employment, what is your past work experience?
Past work experience includes 23 years and change at U.S. Army. In the Army, I worked as a general pathologist. I worked as a medical examiner, a forensic pathologist with the Armed Forces Medical Examiner System. I've also worked part-time in several jurisdictions, including Clark County, Nevada, which represents Las Vegas and Southern Nevada, the state of Mississippi, New Jersey, Baltimore.
Look at that. Look at that. It's like a drop biscuit, they said. cheesy sausage biscuits. That looks delicious. We should be a foodie channel. Oh, yum. So it's kind of like a muffiny scone, but with sausage bits. Wow. Oh, okay. So you use like, is that mincemeat or sausage? There's sausages. Don't look like that. That looks like ground meat. Sorry. Let's get back to it. Distracted.
More, spent some time in South Carolina, so I've had a couple of part-time jobs in addition to my full-time employment.
Do you have any peer-reviewed publications?
Yes.
Oh.
Have you presented at national and international forensic conferences?
Yes.
And do you have any board certifications?
Yes.
What about active state medical licenses? How many of those do you carry?
I currently have 9 state medical licenses, all in good standing.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
Yes.
And what might those be?
The National Association of Medical Examiners and American Academy of Forensic Sciences. I'm on multiple committees and working groups for both of those organizations. I'm also a member of the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners, the College of American Pathologists, which is the largest group of pathologists in the world, and the American Society of Clinical Pathology.
In your career, about how many autopsies have you personally performed?
I've personally performed over 2,500 autopsies.
And in your work as a forensic pathologist, have you ever been involved in any high-profile cases?
Yes.
Just briefly, an overview, what kind of cases were those?
There were, let's see, my first.
These proceedings.
Your Honor, I would argue that if you were allowed to answer, they would be relevant cases.
Overruled. I'll permit the witness to answer. Go ahead, please.
My first high-profile case in the military was a group of Christian missionaries who were kidnapped by Somali pirates. This was back in 2010,
Oh, my
2011.
Lord.
I wrote the
Somali
federal
pirates.
opinion for the George Floyd case, and I did a series of suspected insulin homicides in a VA hospital in Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Your Honor, subject to cross-examination by the defense, I would ask that this witness be treated as an expert in the field of forensic pathology pursuant to Rule 702.
All right, Mr. Selden, do you wish to engage in voir dire pertaining to this witness's credentials?
No, Your Honor. We accept him as an expert.
All right, the court declares this witness to be an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Uribe, did you prepare a report in this case?
Yes.
And I am now holding what I would ask to be marked as, I believe, states 21. 21, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Oh, now I'm hungry.
Your Honor,
That looks delicious.
Yes, you may.
Dr. Uribe, could you just briefly look over that and tell me if that is the report that you wrote in this case?
Yes, it is.
Does it appear to have been altered in any way from the way that you submitted it?
No.
Did you review certain records when preparing your report in this case?
Yes.
Could you briefly tell us which records you reviewed?
The records I reviewed were medical records from the Charleston Area Medical Center, Raleigh General Hospital, some hospice records, the initial autopsy report and autopsy photographs, and investigative documents, including interviews, investigative statements from police and other investigative officers.
Apologize, Your Honor. I forgot I was going to need the projector.
All right.
Your Honor, in the interim, I'm going to ask for admission of State's Exhibit 21.
Any objection, Mr. Selden?
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 21 will be admitted into evidence.
Dr. Uribe, did you chart Mr. Cochrane's glucose and potassium levels from his medical records?
Yes.
And does this accurately reflect the chart that you produced?
Yes.
What about those levels were significant to you?
There was significant, I wouldn't say significant, I would say profound hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is low blood glucose. His admission glucose level was 21, which is incredibly unusual. It's also associated with a low potassium as well. Later on in the hospitalization, once he was treated for the hypoglycemia, the blood sugar went up and then it went back down again.
A croissant.
This is
I know what a croissant is. A croissant.
a pattern that I refer to as refractory
I'll just eat my
hypoglycemia, which
cherries
is
and
where
shut up.
someone comes in hypoglycemic, you treat them with sugars, their blood sugar goes back up, but then something is dragging the sugar back down. And that is to me, that is a significant pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that pattern significant to you?
Because there are only a few things that can do that. One of the big things is insulin administration, because insulin or certain other drugs like oral hypoglycemic agents, which are oral drugs that you take to control diabetes, that drug effect from either insulin or these other agents serve to continue to drag the sugar levels down despite treatment. So you give someone who's hypoglycemic sugar, you expect it to bounce back up and stay that way, but there's some sort of force that's pulling the sugar back down again. And that to me, that's a significant red flag.
And given that you classified it as a red flag, had you seen this in a clinical setting, what sort of testing
There would have had to have been a second injection then for that to happen.
would you have performed?
The testing to be performed, when you suspect exogenous insulin administration, meaning insulin being given that's unprescribed, there's a very, very small window where you can do adequate testing. The classic teaching is you draw what's for laboratory testing, you draw an insulin level and a C-peptide. Now, if I may explain to the jury what these two things are. So the body makes a protein called proinsulin. And when insulin is about to be released by the pancreas, proinsulin is basically, essentially cut in half. And half of it is what's regarded as insulin. The other half is something called C-peptide. So when you test for insulin and C-peptide levels, you expect them to be, essentially in a 1-to-1 ratio, because you have one molecule, you break it in half, you have, two representative pieces. When you administer insulin to someone, you have a lot of insulin, but no C-peptide, because that C-peptide wasn't, cleaved off and wasn't relieved by the body, or wasn't released by the body. So when you suspect...
Your Honor, at this point, we have to object to this testimony.
All right. I can get Pioneer Woman country fried steak, old fashioned country fried steak, Paula Deen country fried steak, cast iron cowboy steak, braised cola and bourbon, sloppy joes. Okay. Southern country fried steak. Oh. So it's a piece of steak with like breadcrumbs, and then fried. Yeah. Wow. Really? Country fried steak, Australia's best recipes. Really? And I've never heard this. Cut steak into serving portions, put in flour, brown in oil, sprinkle salt, pepper, add half a cup of water, cover and simmer for 30 minutes. The heck? That doesn't sound like the picture. Yeah. Okay, another rabbit hole. Oh, we meet here. Come on, spill the beans. So you take a piece of steak and you coat it in breadcrumbs like you would chicken, and then you fry it like you would chicken. Yeah, is that what a country fried steak is? I haven't had steak for ages. So she looks 50-something. You haven't asked her? How would you know this one? Knob.
Witness is an expert in forensic pathology. Now he's testifying as to chemistry and other matters that go out of his.
Well, I have more like with Sarah. She's in Florida.
This testimony
and she
is
writes
about chemical effects, and Dr. Krieger was the expert specialized in this area, not this witness. He's a forensic pathologist.
I think he's laying the groundwork, and I think it relates to his field.
We'll have to have
I'll
a food
overrule
stream.
the objection, Dr. Uribe. You can continue.
Oh, because he's cold.
So when you have exogenous administration of insulin, meaning administration of insulin from an outside source, if you suspect that, when your patient is hypoglycemic in front of you, so when they're, profoundly hypoglycemic, and you suspect that, you need to draw an insulin and C-peptide level then. If you draw it after you administer treatment, then the body starts releasing natural insulin, so you're going to get that C-peptide again. And when the laboratory testing that you would expect in insulin administration is a high insulin level with no C-peptide. But once again, there's a very, very short window of testing where clinically you can order this.
Any of that testing have been performed after Mr. Cochrane passed away?
No,
No,
because
she
there's
had
no
treatment.
postmortem utility in insulin and C-peptide levels postmortem.
Did you review imaging studies in this case?
Yes.
Were any of those indicative of head trauma?
No.
Now, you performed an autopsy on Mr. Cochrane's remains, correct?
Yes,
About how long after Mr. Cochrane passed away did your autopsy take place?
it was over 2 years.
Oh,
Can you explain to us why there was
He was
such a long
exhumed
window
twice.
between his death and your autopsy?
I was asked to do a second
Wow.
autopsy by the Raleigh district attorney at the time, Benjamin Hatfield, because of the suspicious circumstances in this case.
What was the condition of the body upon
Ugh.
exhumation at the time of your examination?
Not nice.
There was marked decomposition. And what I mean by marked decomposition is I was told that the body was embalmed. If they were embalmed, they
bones
weren't
and liquid.
embalmed very well at all. The body basically consisted of a skeleton with some degree of soft tissue that had turned into
Gotcha.
what we call adipocere, which is like where the fatty tissues of the body turn into almost like a hard chalky soap.
Oh.
It's a natural
Uh-huh.
natural type of decomposition. So there was some adipocered soft tissue, and the body was largely skeletonized.
Mhm.
Is there a typical protocol that you follow when you conduct an autopsy?
Yes.
Can you just very briefly, very high level, explain for us what that looks like?
Sure. So
I don't want to end up
you
like
never
that.
want to do an
Maybe.
autopsy in a vacuum. So the first part,
Yeah.
and sometimes the most important
Absolutely.
part is review of the circumstances of death. You never want to do an autopsy in a vacuum and just like, here's a body, figure out why they died, because you need to know as much as you can about the circumstances of why they died. So the investigation, medical records, everything preceding when the person died. And then once you're doing the
Bone marrow,
autopsy,
perhaps.
it's broken up into several parts. The first part is the external examination, where you look at the body. You basically just describe what you see: height, weight, eye color, hair color, evidence of trauma, evidence of natural disease, evidence of injury, things like that. Once you finish the external examination,
Do
you
you know
can open
anything?
the body and do an internal examination. The internal examination,
Couldn't do the internal either.
once again, looks for evidence of trauma, looks for evidence of natural disease. You take out the internal organs and dissect them, looking for evidence of natural disease, trauma, things like that. You can collect tissues or body fluids for additional testing or
Gross.
microscopic analysis. Once you finish the external or internal examination, then you can send for ancillary studies, which include microscopic analysis of tissue, analysis of blood or other tissues for toxicology to see what drugs or medications were in the body at the time of death. And then you correlate all of these findings together, the scene investigation, the autopsy findings, the ancillary studies, and we use that to reach a cause and manner of death.
And what did you determine were Michael Cochrane's cause and manner of death?
Michael Cochrane's cause and manner of death there's a lot of circumstantial evidence in this case that does not correlate with the autopsy findings or medical record. And whenever we have that, I call it a discordance, or things that don't add up or make sense, those are sort of the red flags that we look at. With the entirety of the circumstances, including the initial autopsy findings, the second autopsy findings, which there weren't much, the history of profound hypoglycemia that's very much unexplained, I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was exogenous insulin administration, and there's no explanation for why a non-diabetic,
Homicide.
otherwise relatively healthy male would have such profound hypoglycemia and also refractory hypoglycemia as well. And there's no other viable explanation for it. That the only reasonable conclusion that I could make is that
Actually,
he was
it's
given
impossible.
insulin.
And so specifically, what is his manner of death?
Homicide.
Manner of death would be homicide, because there's no evidence
Yep.
that he administered insulin himself. People don't accidentally administer insulin to themselves or when given.
Your Honor, we object at this time. The
That's why they brought the
statement
case.
that it is a homicide, that's for this court to decide. It is a conclusion that this witness cannot come to.
Your Honor, that is a manner of death which is determined by all medical examiners.
Objections overruled.
Dr. Uribe, what other possible causes did you rule out when you reached that conclusion?
So when doing an autopsy, there are
How do you know he didn't give
You-
himself insulin? How can you say that?
look at the totality of the case, and sometimes you can break it down into different pieces, but you have to look at everything in its totality. The circumstances in this case, was there evidence of trauma? There was a questionable fall as the initiating event, but there was no evidence of trauma in the medical records. There was questionable evidence of a questionable seizure. Once again, I'm not sure a history of seizure disorder has been substantiated, so that sort of remains a question. There are other causes such as heart disease. Could heart disease cause someone to go unconscious? Sure, I see it all the time. People with hypertension and heart disease, they can have a cardiac arrhythmia as well. But these cardiac arrhythmias aren't due to hypertension and a bad heart. They're not associated with hypoglycemia at all. There was a question of steroid use or clomiphene and clomiphene, which is enclomiphene is an androgen agonist, and a lot of men use, well, in women it's used for fertility treatments to hyperovulate, because what this drug does is it causes the body to produce excess sex hormone. When used in men, it's used to sort of reboot natural testosterone promotion. But enclomiphene by itself is not associated with seizures, is not associated with cardiac arrhythmia. So that didn't make sense either. There are other causes of hypoglycemia. There could be a pancreatic tumor that secretes insulin periodically. Those are incredibly rare. There's a number of other medical conditions that can, but there's no evidence substantiating any of those other causes. And why would they suddenly present during this time when the medical history and circumstances are suspicious? So there are very, very few causes that would cause an otherwise healthy 38-year-old male to have a blood glucose of 21 that's confirmed by the lab. And especially with the associated hypokalemia, which is the low potassium as well. When you have profound hypoglycemia and hypokalemia, so low blood sugar and low potassium, with no other reasonable or viable explanation, I came to the conclusion that this is likely due to insulin that was administered at some point.
And has anything come to your attention since generating your report that would change any of your conclusions?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Cross-examination, Mr. Selden.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Uribe. I am Stanley Selden. I'm co-counsel for the defendant, Natalie Cochrane.
And I had
Good morning, sir.
microphones.
Good morning.
And I'm a dipstick.
And again, how did you learn of this case?
I learned of this case from the previous Raleigh District Attorney, Benjamin Hatfield.
And were you hired by the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office to testify in this case?
I was hired by the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office to look at this case, at the time, possibly perform a second autopsy, which we ended up doing, and then subsequently for my testimony in this case, yes.
So the state and the Raleigh County Prosecuting Attorney's Office is paying you for your services, isn't that correct?
They're compensating me for my time, yes.
I hate how they put that shit in. Give me the shits.
And I believe you said that you have done over 2,500 autopsies, and have you testified in an equal number of cases?
I've performed over 2,500 autopsies. I've testified approximately 40 times.
And of those 40 times, have you always testified for the prosecution in court?
No.
Sorry?
No.
No. About how many of those cases have you testified for the prosecution?
Approximately, it's about an 80-20% split. It's heavily weighted towards the prosecution because I'm often the medical examiner who performed the autopsy. So in a case of someone who got shot, I'm the doctor who performed the autopsy. I'm naturally called by the prosecution, but I do take defense cases as well.
Now, you said you weren't really sure. It was a number of years when you conducted your autopsy. Would it surprise you to learn that you conducted your autopsy almost 4 years after the date of death of Michael Cochrane?
I may have been confused about my dates, but that could be true. I would have to check my report to verify the dates.
2 years, 4 years, potato, tomato.
I submit that Michael Cochrane died approximately February 11th of 2019,
Oh,
and your report is authored. It has a date of April 5th of 2024, so that's almost 5 years, isn't that
yeah.
correct?
Yes, and
And
the second autopsy was performed in July of 2023.
The first autopsy, conducted by Dr. KUBICZEK, was conducted only 7 months after Michael Cochrane's
no
death.
shit,
Were you aware
Sherlock.
of that?
Yes,
And the first autopsy was done, and the results were because the body was much less decomposed after 7 months than after 5 years, correct?
then after,
You conducted your autopsy almost 4 years after the original autopsy. The state of the body would have been vastly
Yeah.
more decomposed.
We've established
Isn't
that,
correct?
dickhead.
yes, the body was vastly more decomposed, and a lot of that is because I don't think he was properly embalmed. If he was embalmed, the
I-
body
I didn't
obviously would have
ask-
been in better shape.
I did not ask the reason. I just asked
Fuck.
about the time.
I hate this.
Thank you. You've
pussy.
answered the question.
Tony.
Did the advanced decomposition limit your ability to make certain diagnoses?
Yeah.
Yes,
Was there any finding during your autopsy that detected any insulin in Michael Cochrane's body or any C peptides?
no,
There was no body.
And this could not be determined because of the advanced decomposition of the body. Isn't that correct?
that's correct. And there's also no,
Thank you. You answered the question. Now, because you did not detect insulin or C-peptide in the body because of the advanced decomposition, how did you conclude that it was insulin administration related
medical
to
records.
death?
it was a clinical correlation from review of the medical records.
Can you say with absolute medical certainty that exogenous insulin administration was the cause of Michael Cochrane's hypoglycemia and death?
I can say with-
Absolute certainty, 100%.
I don't use the term absolute.
There is
For
no
anything.
absolute certainty in medical science.
Despite all of your assertions, you cannot accurately conclude
Go on, headbutt
That-
the mic again.
exogenous insulin administration is the cause of death, can you?
I don't believe that statement is true.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I don't believe that statement is true. I think you can, based on clinical correlation in the absence of any other viable explanation for profound or refractory hypoglycemia, hypokalemia, in the absence of any other causative finding for it.
Was there any testing in the medical
See how
records
unsteady
from
he is?
any of the hospitals that showed insulin and C-peptide levels?
No,
Sorry?
no,
And there was no testing like this because there was no suspicion whatsoever by his doctors that he had been.
That calls for speculation. He can't testify as to the suspicions of his doctors.
Sustained.
Despite all of the testing in the hospitals that Michael Cochrane underwent,
Yeah.
there were no tests
No.
done for insulin in his body. Isn't that correct?
correct.
We've got to state the obvious competition.
Do you know what the medical term refractory hypoglycemia means?
Are you fucking
Yes.
kidding me?
And isn't the definition of refractory hypoglycemia that it is a prolonged period of low blood sugar that doesn't respond
Really?
to standard treatments?
That's not the definition.
What do you think the definition is?
Let's
The
ask the doctor,
definition
shall we?
of refractory hypoglycemia is hypoglycemia that persists despite treatment for the hypoglycemia.
So,
Yeah, now you're fucked. That face.
do you know that to correct low blood sugar, like the ones demonstrated in Michael, that to control that, it requires high doses of glucose or
You're
continuous
talking to a
monitoring?
fucking medical examiner. You cockhead.
So by your testimony, did Michael Cochrane have refractory hypoglycemia?
Yes. Because it went back
Isn't
down
the
again.
correct answer to that question no, because his blood sugar responded to therapy. He was given D50
No.
glucose
No.
and his blood
No.
sugar levels went.
If you listened, you dickhead, he said that it doesn't respond to normal treatment. It did go up, but then it went back down again.
Down.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that question. The witness has already answered the
Yeah.
question, and Mr. Selden has simply rephrased his answer.
Yeah, he's a
I think
dickhead.
it's a fair question. I'll allow it. The objection's overruled. Answer if you can, please, doctor.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. The question is, his blood sugar responded to therapy. He was given D50 glucose
Yes, and then it
and
went
his
down
blood
again.
sugar levels went up, not down.
Inexplicably.
Yes, his blood sugars did respond to glucose therapy, but then they also subsequently went down after they initially responded. That is the definition of refractory hypoglycemia.
Mhm.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to have defendant's exhibit number 10.
All right.
And this is at 1.25 speed. Can you imagine watching him normal? He's got something here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe MS-ish. Possibly.
Dr. Uribe, this is a chart very similar to the one you use, which shows the date and time of the monitoring of Michael Cochrane's blood glucose levels. And it has a column, number 3, that suggests the hours since allegedly Michael Cochrane was injected with insulin, which appears from testimony to be around 12 p.m. on February 6, 2019. And the last or fourth column has a listing of whether insulin, Lispro Humalog insulin, was active in his body. Okay? Do you see that chart and those columns?
Yes, I see the chart.
Now, on February 6th of 2019, at 8:20 p.m., which is 20 hours by military time, his blood glucose level was 21, which was approximately 8 hours and 20 minutes after insulin was allegedly injected in him. Do you see that column?
Yes, I see the column.
Was Humalog insulin active in his body? Was it still working in his body?
I would say yes, but I do object to some of the columns of this chart.
Your objection is noted, but we're going to go through it. And I'm going to ask you questions about it. How long do you think human Lispro insulin is active in the body? How long does it work?
It usually works within, or it usually works 4 to 6 hours, but
I'm sorry, but 4 to 6 hours.
4 to 6 hours, but there's also a dose dependent. If you get a large dose, then the effects can last longer. It's a very difficult thing to study because we can't inject otherwise healthy people with superhuman levels of insulin and see how long it takes for the insulin effects to wear off. But with the average dose of lisfureinsulin, the average expectancy of it functioning is 4 to 6 hours. But there is a dose-related effect of that as well.
So if Michael Cochrane was given an injection of a, as you term, fairly normal dose, the human-log insulin would only be expected to work 4 to 6 hours. Isn't that correct?
Yes, but it raises.
Very simple question. Now, February 7th, 2019, he's being closely monitored. We don't have a blood glucose level there. It's now 12 and a half hours approximately since the alleged injection. 12 and a half hours under any circumstances, a normal dose, or however you want to term it, of insulin, it's no longer active in the body. Isn't that correct?
At 12 hours, generally no, but there's also the dose-dependent feature,
You
which I discussed
already made
earlier.
that statement. Generally, no. Human insulin isn't active in the body after 12 and a half hours, correct?
Generally no.
The next two entries, well, the next entry is also on February 7th, now 12 hours and 5 more minutes since the last meeting. February 7th, 2019, at 12:30, I believe it's 12:33 a.m. Now, his glucose levels are going up. He's responding to treatment because sometime around that time, he was given a dose of D50 glucose. D50 glucose is used to raise blood glucose levels. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So he's responding to treatment at this time. Would that be a fair statement?
Slightly, but he's still significantly hypoglycemic.
And that depends on what your definition of hypoglycemia is. If the threshold is 70 milligrams per deciliter in a person without diabetes, that could be considered hypoglycemia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next two columns, his blood glucose level is going up. It's now 80 and then 187. And he's responding to the treatment. His levels are going up. Wouldn't that be correct?
Yes.
Now, suddenly, approximately 3 hours later, his blood glucose levels are going down. They've gone from 187 all the way down to 44. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you really can't state why, correct? You
Correct.
talk about refractory hypoglycemia, other causes, etc. It's really unknown why his blood glucose level goes down to 44. Would that be correct?
Correct.
At 6:22 a.m., approximately an hour later, his glucose goes back up to 95. We don't know why. Correct?
Correct.
Then at 10:33 a.m., about 4 hours later, back down to 60. We can't positively say why that happened. Correct?
Correct.
And from the other time marks, from February 7th through February 8th, his blood glucose levels have now gone way up, and by any definition, they would be within normal limits. Is that correct?
They're above normal limits.
But they're no longer low, and they're no longer indicative of hypoglycemia at that time. Correct?
Correct.
So in summary of that, from February 7th, 2019, 11:53 a.m., when the blood glucose levels are at 154, and afterwards, you cannot say Humalog insulin was active in Michael Cochrane's body at those times. Is that correct?
Correct. That would make sense.
For clarification, what are the causes of hypoglycemia that you considered?
Could you repeat the question? Because I
He
can't tell if
said
you said
pancreatic.
hypo or hyperglycemia.
Pancreatic
Hypo,
cancer.
H-Y-P-O.
Okay,
That means low.
hypoglycemia is can be caused by a number of different things, including pancreatic tumors, which can spontaneously secrete insulin. These are fairly rare. They were not
Excuse me,
identified.
Dr. Uribe, I don't want an extended explanation, just what the causes
Fuck off.
were.
Causes include adrenal insufficiency, drug or medication effect, pancreatic tumors, sepsis,
Adrenal insufficiency.
multi-system organ failure.
That's me.
Okay,
Those are the big ones.
all right.
Hmm.
You state in your
See,
report that
Now, that, right there, that's interesting. Very interesting, because Addison's disease, which is the shutting down of your adrenal gland, is very, very, very difficult to diagnose. Very. And it mimics a diabetic coma, because I had a friend, well, I've got a friend, sorry, who presented at the hospital that I was working at, an emergency department, and he was eventually diagnosed with Addison's. But when he came out of it, the doctor said, you don't get any closer to death than that. Now, his brother came to emergency with him. Now, the reason this was picked up was because he had gone through a massive, his family had had gastro. So all of his electrolytes were out of balance. That's why you see me drinking a Powerade. Yeah, I struggle to keep my magnesium levels up. Otherwise, my body cramps. So I drink electrolytes to get them back. So yeah, he'd had this massive bout of gastro. So his body, he said, he was just constantly in massive cramps, and then gradually lost consciousness, and they called an ambulance on him. And it took them days and days to try and get a diagnosis, because it is really, really, well, it's not really common. And it only happened that the medical doctor that was on at the time was efficient or profound, like he'd studied this in great detail. And I've got secondary Addison's, which means that the cause of the adrenal gland shutting down was caused from a secondary problem, which is me taking the steroids, whereas his wasn't. So he didn't know he had it. And it mimics almost chronic fatigue as well, because you've got that fatigue element because your blood sugar's too low. That could have been it. He could have had an Addisonian crisis if his adrenal gland wasn't functioning. And then it wouldn't have mattered if they treated him with the blood sugar. It would have gone up and then gone down again, because you can't maintain. That's fucking. Oh, what have I got? You guys type way too fast for me. Oh my God. All right. He must not have had a lot of. Yeah, she's still in prison. I know a friend was there. But who was the other person there? Do you know? He didn't. Well, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, it wouldn't matter if you'd had insulin or not. He would have just gradually become unconscious, and you would not have known. And they kept asking his brother 100 times in the emergency department, "Are you sure he's not diabetic? Are you sure?" Because they confuse it all the time. Fuck. That puts another spin on it altogether. Now, it's gone past it again. Thought the same thing. It's all very, yeah, it is. That just throws another batter in the works. What's the name of the prison? Excuse me, she's in. What makes her look the most guilty is not getting him any help. Yeah. Oh, she could be. What county is it? What county, West Virginia? Have a look up on their on the county sheriff's clerk, the county clerk's office. Look up her name, do a search on there, and that'll tell you where she is. Or corrections, Department of Corrections. You worked with a child that had as yeah, it's life-threatening. It's awful. So you'd have to take tablets every day, yeah? There you go. Is that near you, Teresa? Cool. So does that make sense what I just said with regards to that? What would happen with that little girl if she didn't have her medications for the day? She would have gone into what's called an Addisonian crisis. So I have to be really, really careful if I have diarrhea or anything like that. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Yeah. Yep. Same. I'm supposed to be wearing an emergency bracelet, but fuck that.
That insulinoma, which is insulin-producing tumors in the pancreas that can cause hypoglycemia, that was excluded by the first autopsy, but this isn't really true, is it? The first autopsy didn't exclude that.
They would have.
Isn't that right?
They would
Did
have
not
had to have
identify
been.
a pancreatic tumor.
They would have had to have been specifically looking for this to find it, and they would not have thought it if they saw the insulin and went, nah, they would not have even thought twice. But
Okay. Isn't it true that when the body decomposes, the organs of which pancreas is
no.
one of
Really?
the first organs to decompose?
Oh,
Okay.
it really wouldn't matter 5 years fucking later.
So in
Christ.
the first autopsy and your autopsy, the second one,
Can I stab him in the eye?
because the pancreas was essentially
I
decomposed,
don't do idiots.
you can't determine whether there are any tumors producing
Oh.
insulin. Wouldn't that be a fair
Yeah, it
statement?
was liquid.
I can go by what Dr. KUBICZEK said in his report, and that no pancreatic tumor was identified.
Okay. It's reported that Michael Cochrane used medications he ordered from abroad. He
Yeah,
used
we
various
don't know what
substances,
they are.
and you can't exclude those substances or medications as having caused his hypoglycemia
No,
because
it was
you
soup.
don't know what they were.
It was broth.
Wouldn't that be a correct statement?
It is scary to have. Yeah.
The
They're not-
medication,
They're not listed anywhere, so you can't include or exclude them.
So why bring them up then?
the medications that I am aware that he was taking are not associated with hypoglycemia.
I'm talking about ones that weren't,
Well, they're not listed, so
Included.
how can he give you an
no
opinion?
reporting, no accurate reportings of what those were. You can't exclude them because you don't know what they were, right?
Sure.
Yeah. As the tree falls in the forest. Oh my God.
And any
You don't know what he was
substances,
taking. You can't
medications,
exclude it, can you?
etc., can't be excluded because they could have been eliminated from his body after death and decomposition. Isn't that correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, they're dumb. Sorry. Sorry.
Any of these substances, medications, etc., cannot be excluded because they could have been eliminated from his body after death and decomposition. Isn't that correct?
You scoop up the soup.
The substances are gone.
Yeah.
Some substances would be affected by decomposition. Some medications and drugs would be able to be detected despite decomposition, even in an autopsy 7 months after death.
Cochrane. Oh, that's what we need.
You
That's
said-
what we need.
Now,
Yeah, come on. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, shit. I'll find it.
let me rephrase. You can't definitively say
I hate it when
that
this is-
insulin was present in Michael Cochrane's body after his death and decomposition. There was no insulin in his body, correct?
There was no body, you fucking.
Insulin rapidly degenerates.
Oh,
So, Mr. Cochrane, of the Cochranes, of the Cochranes, when Mr. Cochrane, for the Cochranes, Mr. Cochrane,
Mr. Cochrane's.
Natalie Cochrane, Miss Cochrane's, Mr. Cochrane.
That says
Cochrane.
Michael Cochrane.
Cochrane.
It says Michael
Look,
Cochrane.
It says Michael Cochrane.
Michael Cochrane.
Tactical. Cochrane's.
Michael Cochrane.
Cochrane Tacticals.
However, Mr. Cochrane.
And they're like they can't do anything. You're a cunt. You come to that. That's plain simple. Just like that. Simple. Can't. You can't say that. Sorry about that. Not sorry. Oh, Cochrane. Yeah.
And
Sorry,
decomposes.
I'll just.
That's one of the reasons
I'll
why
just sit
postmortem
here quietly
insulin testing
and
and postmortem C-peptide testing is, you can't do it. There's no
Yeah.
utility for it.
Okay, so you can't tell if insulin was in his body for all the reasons you talked about, right?
Correct.
And after death, you say you can't do any kind of insulin testing, right? Postmortem insulin testing can't be done.
There are some ways you can detect insulin postmortem.
Does she?
Did you do any of those tests that showed insulin in his body?
No.
So because of that, because there wasn't any tests or insulin present in Michael's body after death, you cannot say with absolute medical
Oh, my
certainty
God.
that insulin was involved in Michael Cochrane's hypoglycemia or death, can you?
I can't do this.
First, I wouldn't use the term absolute. And there is no other viable explanation for profound hypoglycemia in a non-diabetic, otherwise, relatively healthy male. There
Okay.
are no natural conditions that bring someone's blood glucose to a lab confirmed level
All
of
right,
21.
you've made that statement. Let me clarify
Yeah.
with some other
Well,
questions.
you've asked the fucking same question, you dickhead.
What if you were told that Michael Cochrane injected himself numerous times with insulin prior to his death? Would that change your conclusions? And let me clarify a little more.
It's possible, but why would a non-diabetic person inject themselves with insulin?
Well, because they thought they were giving themselves something else. Mm. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, we already know one vial was tampered with. She'd changed, or someone had changed the clomiphene to prednisolone. Plot thickens even more.
If they were a bodybuilder,
Yeah,
and they were using insulin to assist them in their bodybuilding,
I
enhancing their
agree.
body.
There is no evidence. It could have been him. He could have injected himself with anything. You don't know what he did or what he was taking.
For various reasons, that could be a reason for self-injection of insulin, couldn't it?
To my knowledge, bodybuilders don't use insulin.
No.
Really? So you
Yes,
don't
really.
know that Mr. Olympia died from overdosing himself
fuck?
with insulin. That's history. You weren't aware of that?
What the
This is how Mr. Olympia died, and the fact that he was using insulin, we don't even know that he was using it as a bodybuilding technique.
Because he just said he doesn't know why anyone would inject themselves with
Yeah,
insulin.
exactly.
I'll overrule the
Doesn't make
objection.
sense.
Please continue.
Thank you. Were you not aware
Oh, you just make
Mr.
yourself
Olympia,
like
a
dickhead.
bodybuilder, died from self-injected insulin?
No.
I know. They wanted to get him into a keto state. You know how they get onto the keto, low carbs, high protein? They would use insulin to get him into a ketotic state, but not let his insulin go too low. You're a fuckwit.
Were you not aware
I
that
studied
in the Journal of Emergency
Mr.
Medicine,
Olympian.
Volume 56, Issue 3, March of 2019, there is an article by Matthew Heidet, Heidet, MD, that is devoted to severe hypoglycemia due to cryptic insulin use in a bodybuilder. Were you never aware of that article?
No, I'm not aware of a solitary case study that was written 5 years ago at this point.
And it's a nice way of saying your fucking research is outdated and you're a fuckwit. And I'm not answering that.
Well, if you had reviewed that article, it doesn't talk about one specific case. It references many cases.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's possible, maybe even probable, that Michael Cochrane, a bodybuilder,
It's possible you had
used
frog legs for
insulin.
breakfast too.
That would be a reason. Correct?
I'm not aware of it. I would be happy to review the article if you were to provide it.
All right.
Fucking dickhead. Can we watch his head? His face plant?
Michael Cochrane is documented in many medical records that he had an enlarged heart.
Yeah, and what about the
Correct.
fluid on the brain? Like, no one's talked about that.
And specifically, I'll reference you to his discharge summary, which says he has an enlarged heart.
And he had an infection.
Okay. That was
Okay.
one of his diagnoses.
Okay.
All right. Isn't it true that chronic long-term substance abuse can cause an enlarged heart?
Yes.
Are you aware that when a person is in a coma or has been unconscious for a long period of time and they're admitted into the hospital, that their naked body is thoroughly examined by hospital staff to determine such things as bruising, external signs of trauma, etc. You aware of that?
Generally, yes.
Yeah, but they're not looking for
And
pinprick holes between the
nowhere
toes.
in the hospital medical records is it cataloged that there were any injection sites
See an
or
insulin injection site
signs
between the
of injection in Michael Cochrane's body. Isn't that
It is
correct?
the smallest
That's
fucking
correct.
syringe. But if they didn't suspect foul play, they wouldn't have been looking for that either. So they would have been looking for obvious stuff. Have you ever seen an insulin syringe? It is tiny. Like,
Isn't it more likely that Michael's chronic substance abuse,
of
his
what substance?
seizures and seizure history, his swollen brain or edema, his abnormal liver enzymes and liver problems, his possible abuse of testosterone, his enlarged heart, and all of this combination of things, which you call a constellation, that they caught up with Michael and resulted in his death, not because of anything Natalie Cochrane did.
None of the things you listed would present as severely profound hypoglycemia on admission.
Because of all of these things, Michael was not a healthy 38-year-old male. Isn't that correct?
It depends on what you consider your definition of healthy is.
Okay.
Yeah, take that. Yeah, I don't know. Because it must have been, it was 7 months after.
Dr. KUBICZEK's autopsy examination 7 months after Michael's death
Why?
showed no physical evidence of insulin or insulin injections in Michael's body. Isn't that correct?
Yes, but I don't believe he was
Okay,
looking.
That, you're answering my question.
Oh, fuck.
And you conducted an autopsy approximately 4 years after Michael's death
We've done this.
with still no objective physical evidence of insulin in Michael's body.
Mhm.
Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Asked and answered.
So the only reasonable conclusion is that you cannot determine the cause and manner of Michael Cochrane's death. And as Dr. KUBICZEK stated, you cannot determine the cause of death. It's undetermined. And you cannot determine the manner of death. It's undetermined. Isn't that correct?
Cause and manner of death are both opinions. I believe the
Okay.
circumstantial evidence in this case, I've already stated my opinion on that.
All right.
I don't like this fucking attorney. He's.
I don't believe I have any more questions at this time.
Oh,
Just a
right.
moment.
Redirect
what?
Ms.
You
Akers.
don't want to ask them a
Your
fourth
Honor,
fucking
I need to
time?
confer with counsel.
Okay.
Are you sure you didn't test the suit for insulin? Hmm? Hmm? Bring back the other one. Oh,
When Humalog insulin, or any other type of insulin for that matter, but specifically Humalog Lispro insulin,
mhm.
once it's injected into the body, its effects or activity in the body,
You've established
its
this.
effects in the body are not instantaneous. It takes
It's
approximately 15 minutes
Yeah.
to begin working.
Yeah.
Isn't that correct?
Mhm.
It takes a period of time, 5 to 15 minutes generally.
So if Michael Cochrane were injected with Humalog insulin, he wouldn't just drop to the ground
No,
unconscious. It would
no.
take time for the effects to begin. Wasn't that true?
Oh.
If you're talking
Yes.
about collapsing right after injection, that would not happen.
No.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
All right, now, Ms. Akers.
Yep. I did message her on
Dr.
Messenger.
Uribe, when you reviewed the medical records in this case, did you also review the toxicology report from the hospital? In fact, sorry, the urine drug screen.
Yes.
Was there anything remarkable about that?
Their urine admission drug screen was positive for benzodiazepines.
Did you review Dr. Krieger's report in this matter?
Um,
Oh, what the? Oh,
I believe I did, but I did after I'd written my consultation because I didn't want
the hell?
her opinion to bias mine.
And as you stand here today, what is your opinion on that report?
On Dr. Krieger's report?
Yes, sir.
I think Dr. Krieger is an eminently qualified endocrinologist who has the clinical background of treating diabetic patients, which
What is going on with my phone?
I don't have. I mean, I don't really treat my patients.
Mr. Honor, his opinion of Dr. Krieger really doesn't figure into his testimony.
Your Honor, we've repeatedly asked about the opinion of Dr. KUBICZEK. I don't see why the opinion of Dr. Krieger is any different.
Overruled.
You can continue if you have anything else to add, Dr.
Oh,
Krieger.
no, I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. Did the fact that you were hired by the state to do a report in this matter affect your testimony in any way?
No.
In addition to the advanced decomposition of Mr. Cochrane's body,
See
why
that?
were you unable
Shut-
to perform insulin
shut-
and C-peptide
sweet,
studies
to
during
the
your
point.
autopsy?
Because there's no utility in testing for insulin and C-peptide postmortem.
Do you have any way of knowing how many doses of insulin Mr. Cochrane would have received before his death?
No.
Mm-mm.
In your opinion, what was the mechanism that ultimately caused Michael Cochrane to die?
I believe the clinical correlation and medical record review demonstrates with a profound hypoglycemia and hypokalemia, which I previously described, that there was an exogenous administration of insulin. It does not appear to me to be self-inflicted nor accidental in nature.
And based on your review of the medical records that you received, who was Mr. Cochrane's alleged supplement and insulin use reported by?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Who
Based on
told
your
you
review
about
of the
it?
medical records that you went over in preparing the report, who provided the information that Mr. Cochrane was allegedly using supplements or insulin?
Mrs. Cochrane.
There was some reports that he was using enclomiphene, and this is all information I received from the Raleigh district attorney. And I was not aware of him administering insulin to himself or that that was a possibility.
Mr. Cochrane was reportedly unconscious the afternoon of February 6, 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how it was. That's how the history was reported.
And was it also reported that his wife checked his blood sugar and it was in the 140s at that time?
I've also received that history, yes.
So do you see any way possible that he could have injected himself with insulin?
Objecting to that. Speculation of this witness, he has no knowledge.
Overruled. You can answer, Doctor.
Could you repeat the question one more time, please?
Sure. Based on those facts, the fact that he was unconscious the entire afternoon and the fact that his blood sugar was reported at 145, do you see any way that he could have injected himself with insulin during that time?
I'm going to object again. It's not time specific. She's not asking any time frame for injection.
Okay, that's fair. Put it in a time frame, please, Ms. Aker.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. Are you aware of any way that an unconscious person could inject themselves with insulin?
No, and I don't know what the timeline of insulin administration would be, or if it was a single or multiple doses of insulin. I can't exclude that either.
Is there any other information that you believe the jury needs to consider in order to decide this case?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Recross, Mr. Selden.
Yes, Ron. Thank you. You were asked by Ms. Aker that you were aware that benzodiazepines showed up in Michael Cochrane's urine. Is that correct?
Yes.
But there's no reporting or reason or any accounting of how those benzodiazepines showed up in his urine. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned sepsis as a possible cause of hypoglycemia, correct?
Yes.
And sepsis is an infection in the body. Wouldn't that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Now, an infection in the body is usually fought by the body's white blood cells.
That's where he's
right?
gone
That's
with that.
essentially what they do. They fight infection or foreign substances in the body.
Yes, the white blood cells are part of the human immune system.
Okay. Are you aware that Michael's white blood cell count was highly elevated when he was admitted to the hospital and in subsequent testing?
Yes,
So wouldn't that indicate that infection or sepsis in Michael Cochrane's body might be another reason for his hypoglycemia?
that is a consideration.
Fair enough. And there were some questions by Ms. Aker, something about how could an unconscious person inject themselves, et cetera. You don't know the absolute reason for Michael Cochrane's collapse and unconsciousness, which was initially reported. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Anything further, Ms. Aker?
Very little, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Dr. Uribe, are you aware of other causes of elevated white blood cell counts outside of infection or sepsis?
Yes.
Could you just briefly elaborate?
There are lots of causes for elevated white counts. Elevated white counts could be due to a stress reaction. It could be due to sepsis. It could be due to any type of infection. It could be due to any type of inflammation in the body. There is a very, very broad differential diagnosis for an elevated white count.
And when you reviewed Mr. Cochrane's medical records, did you also review his allergies?
Yes,
Did he have an allergy to a benzodiazepine?
it was listed in his medical record.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Go ahead. All right.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Very well.
Despite the number of other reasons for sepsis and infection, elevated white blood cell count can be an indication of an infection and possible sepsis, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Anything, Ms. Aker? No, hey, this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, doctor. You may be excused.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, let's take our mid-morning break at this time. Members of the jury, please do not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. Please do not view or listen to any reports concerning this case. We'll break for 10 or 15 minutes. You may follow the bailiff to your jury room.
All right.
We'll take our break.
All right. Well, while we're waiting for that, let's have a go on Discord. So I can share that screen. I do believe. Let's take the cock off the page. Oh, actually, no, I can't. I saved it as an overlay. All right, so this is let's get back to the main. Let me get back to the main page. Get rid of that. want to be in there. Where's the welcome? There was a welcome thing here. All right. Anyway, so the first, when you come in, it will ask you to agree with all the rules, and once you accept that, it will let you. Oh, there's a welcome there. Now, I'm trying to see how people are joining. Mr. Uribe, you might be able to help me here if you're still around. People are joining, but there isn't a welcome message. And I tried to put a bot in yesterday. To write a welcome message. I think it was me 6. Yeah, there it is, me 6. Okay. Oh. I don't know. What am I doing? Was it that one I was? See? I don't know what I'm doing. I just press buttons. Yes. Yeah, I think you did too. And I just had a look in here. Yeah. Where is it? Where was I? I was in somewhere. Where the fuck was I? In here. In a category, permissions, and down here, it's got, where is it? Cup God, server owner. And why is everyone disabled? Allows members to view these channels by default. Oh, okay, no. All right, I get it. Because, yeah, I'm actually putting this behind a members wall, not for Elizabeth and Uribe and Anna. I think Anna's a member anyway, but yeah, from now on, it's membership. I don't see why I can't put a bot in here to say welcome. Surely. Cup God, server owner. Yeah, I sent it to her, sweetheart. I emailed it to her earlier today. So how do I change the add members and roles? Add individual members. I don't know what that app is. I'm not even on there. I don't even know how these people are. Once you've done all this setup at the back, behind, it does it itself. But if I'm not down as the owner, then I can't. Mm, yeah, yeah, that's okay. I had it open for a bit, like while we were setting it up, so that people could come in. But I'd like to be able to give them a welcome message automatically, because I'm not going to be on here all the time, and I really, really need a wee. um, some of it, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. And by all means, please do it. But anyone that comes through the my YouTube channel, it's going to be membership. That link won't be on the channel. All right, I've got to go do it. Stop sharing that. And why can't I share? All right, this is. It is. All right, well, they might be coming back anyway. This will play automatically. Whilst I go to a wee. I'll be back.
All right, are there any matters that we need to discuss out of the presence of the jury?
Your Honor, Dr. Banerjee believes that she should listen in to the next witness, who's Lieutenant Bledsoe. She believes there are facts and circumstances that he's going to testify to that would aid her in her subsequent testimony. I've asked the prosecutor if he has any objection, and I need to put that matter before the court because she would like to be connected for audio.
All right, let me see if the state has any objections.
She's been
The next witness is not an expert, as I understand.
I understand that, Your Honor.
It depends on whether there's an objection raised.
Your Honor, the state takes no position with regard to this matter.
Well, I don't know that I have any problems with it. The next witness will be a fact witness, not an expert. And ordinarily, another expert is not entitled to listen to a pure fact witness. But if there's no objection raised by the state, I'll allow it.
All right, Your Honor. Then I'm going to contact Dr. Banerjee and inform him.
Well, we have to have a phone number, and Ms. Brown Bailey will have to contact Dr. Banerjee.
Hello, Dr. Banerjee?
Doctor, you're back online. We have a fact witness that the state is going to call. I understand that you have expressed some desire to listen to the testimony. Is that right?
Yes, sir, and I'll mute myself right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other issues to take up at this time, counsel?
May we approach the bench on one issue that is cropping up?
Sure.
getting the jury. Text him not to bring in the jury yet. Just tell him we're not ready. Okay. Oh. You scared me. I thought you were bringing in the jury. Okay. No, she's not going to testify. Okay, we've marked it up now. Oh, okay. That's even better. Ah, that's even better. So we don't have to run a test. Anything else?
Your Honor, I would just advise the court that this witness is expected to run through lunch, so whenever the court is prepared to break, we can do that.
Okay. You anticipate even on direct, he'll run through lunch?
I anticipate that we'll run right up to lunch, possibly.
Okay. That sounds good. We'll break before cross. Bring in the jury, please. All right, we continue with the state's case in chief. Ms. Akerd, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Timothy Bledsoe to the stand.
Bring a cup of water with me.
Certainly. If you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may have a seat. All right, Ms. Akerd.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
It's Timothy Bledsoe, Timothy, Bledsoe, Bledsoe.
And you're retired now, is that correct?
That's correct.
How were you previously employed?
I was employed by the West Virginia State Police as a West Virginia State Trooper from September of 1994 until April of 2022.
And are you still involved with West Virginia State Police at all?
Yes.
How so?
Prior to my retirement, I was asked by the staff at the West Virginia State Police Academy to periodically do a presentation to the training classes that are put on there for cadet training and basic officer training. And I do that from time to time as they schedule that.
During the course of your employment with the West Virginia State Police, did you have occasion to investigate a Natalie Cochrane?
Yes, I did.
And is that the same Natalie Cochrane that's on trial today?
That's correct. And she's seated here at defense counsel table with her co-counsel, Mr. Victor and Mr. Selden.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect that the witness has identified the defendant?
It shall so reflect.
Thank you. What did you investigate her for?
Initially, the investigation centered around a potential of financial crimes. And then as we continued that investigation, we also investigated the death of Michael Cochrane.
Your Honor, I'm retrieving what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1. I would request permission to approach the witness.
Yes, you may do so.
Can I see that for a second? Oh.
Were you present at the time that the events in State's Exhibit 1 occurred?
Yes, I was.
And have you reviewed State's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Can you identify for us what that is?
Yes, this is the plea agreement signed and carried out in the district court for the Southern District of West Virginia, in which the defendant pled
I'm going
guilty.
to object this entire line of questioning. We're not retrying here the federal case.
Your Honor, this is simply a line of questioning to introduce the federal document of which the court has taken judicial notice into evidence.
For what relevancy?
It is relevant because it's going to prove that Michael Cochrane did not know what was going on in the defendant's Ponzi scheme.
That document has nothing to do with Michael Cochrane.
The stipulation of facts that is reflected in that document does not mention Michael Cochrane, which goes to show that he did not know what was going on.
I'll overrule the objection. I'll permit it. And I'll preserve your exception, Mr. Victor. Go ahead. You may rephrase or re-ask the question, please, Ms. Aker.
I believe I asked you to identify State's Exhibit 1.
Yes, this is the plea agreement, which was signed by the defendant involving the financial crimes in which she was charged in the federal court for the Southern District of West Virginia. She pled guilty.
And does that document accurately reflect the events as you recall them?
Yes, it does.
In that document, is there a stipulation of facts signed by the defendant?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, is Michael Cochrane mentioned anywhere in that stipulation of facts?
No, he is not.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to move State's Exhibit 1 into evidence.
I'm going to object on the same grounds that I objected before, the relevancy.
Have we dealt with State's Exhibit 1 already? It has not been admitted.
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to admit it over objection. I'll preserve the defense objection and exception to the document.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant Bledsoe, can you please tell us what you know about Michael Cochrane?
He was 38 years old at the time of his death. He was married to the defendant. They shared a home here in Raleigh County in the Daniels area, had 2 children together. I never met Michael Cochrane personally, but through investigation and I think
So I'm going to object based on lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, his personal knowledge was gained through his investigation.
Well, which is based probably on hearsay and, again, lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled. You may continue, please.
And through the investigation, we learned that Michael Cochrane was someone who was very conscious of his physical fitness. He was into working out, possibly bodybuilding, and also was very conscious of his standing and reputation in the local community.
Was there any point in your investigation, I'll rephrase, did it ever appear to you as though Michael was questioning the legitimacy of Tactical Solutions Group?
That is the leading question. I object to that.
I think I have to sustain that objection.
You obtained a search warrant for the defendant's phone, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in reviewing that telephone, were there any text messages that caught your attention at any point?
Yes, numerous ones, particularly around late September of 2018, the text messages that we were reviewing as part of our investigation at that time.
Your Honor, I'm asking for 3 exhibits to be marked at this time that have been reviewed by the defense.
All right.
I believe these are 22 through 24.
Yes. Number 22 through 24, Your Honor.
Thank you.
What did I miss? Yes. Yes. I've put you into all the stuff. So if you click onto something and it doesn't let you, oh. I thought I gave her the new one, Uribe, because I've just disabled the other one, I think. Yeah, so basically, on the left-hand side of the server, there's that list. Now, there is down the bottom, staff. Is it staff chat, staff announcements? Where is it? Right down the bottom. Yes. That's all of us. Okay, so that should be in there. Teresia, Uribe, Anna, Elizabeth, me, Miss Mandy, and Tanya. That's it, I think. And that's where, if you want to have a private conversation, the only people that will get notified from there are people that are in that, that are given access to that, all right, which we've set up in the background. So, yeah, if you can't click on something, you haven't been given permission. So anyone that's, I don't know if you can see in the right-hand side if the colours of the names are different. So anyone who's green won't be able to get into all of the stuff. And I do agree with you, Uribe, on the fact that it won't grow quickly. So what I might do, I'm going to just keep it on the low just for a few days, just till I get all the background, you know, all the structure set up, all the, I'm hiding behind your name, to get all of that foundation stuff so that everything happens automatically. I've got a fair bit of it, but I want to tweak shit, and I want to add a couple of channels to it for our tandem and for the podcast and stuff. So I've got to work that out. And once I've got it all set up, then I'll open it up for a month for everyone to come and join for free, and then I'll put it behind a paywall. How's that sound? Because I think if they have to, you know, Australian $2.99, what's that? $1.50 or something a month. I think it makes you a little bit more accountable as well. Did you get my message back, Anna? Yeah, that if you go to the right of the chat line and you hit the GIF and just type in something ridiculous. What did I put in there? Oh, I probably can't say that on here now. But I was sending them to I was sending them to Teresa. We were pissing ourselves laughing. Yeah, it's hard. But I figured it's easier when you're on a PC. You can do it on a PC. I couldn't do it on my mobile. You crack me up. I actually do too. I've got that picture. Where is it? Yeah. Not very good quality, but and does she have rest? Yes, she does. Yes. Jodie's off ordering her a sausage and I wish. I think I just got rid of a sausage and a biscuit. Apple stack cake. You guys make the best shit. He asked when I was going to fix his favourite cake, a banana split. Yum. I used to love it. I just can't stand that long in the kitchen anymore. She's repeatedly claimed he knew about the scam. Yes. Now they say her previous admissions that he did not know about it are irrelevant. The whole state's motive was that he was going to expose her. That's what the fuck. Yes, it is called grasping at straws. Fucking hell. And warts is what you typed. Yeah, no, anal warts, that's right. Yeah, and so you can go up to the top left-hand side of the menu and it will come up with a message, a direct message. And you click on there and anyone in the server you can click to and have a private message with. So if you and Teresa wanted to have a message back and forth. But this is the good thing. If you're logged into Discord whilst we're online and like we're streaming, we can chat. I can be doing both. And, during the lunch breaks, we can jump over into Discord and do shit together. Like I'll have trivia games and movies and all sorts of different shit in there. So it's got heaps of potential when it gets set up. All right, let's get back to the trial. My bad. By the looks of it. Let's see what they've got written down here. Timothy Bledsoe, state trooper. Okay. Someone's got a squeaky chair.
Lieutenant Bledsoe, could you please identify the parties in these text messages on the screen?
It should be fun, Anna. I really think it will be.
228-1321. That would be
Your Honor, could he speak into the microphone?
But I'd also like to be able to just have, us OGs have a place to go. Yeah? You guys need to create me an avatar so I can create an avatar of yourselves and either drop it in the staff or email it to me. I have a plan.
Can't really hear him.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
The 1-304-228-1321 telephone number is identified as being the cellular phone number for the defendant. And the one titled Uncle Buster, I believe that was the uncle of the defendant, Charles Hawley.
And there were several text messages along these same lines, is that correct?
That's correct.
What about these text messages stands out to you?
The first text message is from the defendant to Uncle Buster. It says, "Good evening. After all your contracts pay out, I won't be able to invest them anymore. I will cut your checks as soon as they come in. I am very sorry. I wasn't transparent with Michael on all the contracts we had in the works." That's one of many demonstrations throughout the text message.
I'm going to object.
Sustained, that was unresponsive. Yes, you can follow up with a
Move
question.
to strike, Your Honor, that last answer.
Yes, I'll grant that. Ladies and gentlemen, I disregard the last attempt to explain.
Lieutenant Bledsoe, why does that text message stand out to you?
I don't like being down the bottom here.
Because the defendant is obviously communicating that she was not transparent with Michael about aspects of the business.
Oh, really? Ah.
Now, these text messages are across a couple of pages, but did you identify the parties in these messages as well?
Okay.
Yes, again, this is the defendant's phone, and it appears to be communications with her sister, Penny Carrico, who I believe has since been married and is now maybe Penny Lowry.
I'm just moving on in the same conversation to the top of the next page. Why does that text message stand out to you?
For the same reasons I stated on the previous, it's
We should have a
very similar in context and has the same wording that Michael and I should have been, excuse me, details with Michael and I should have been completely transparent with him. That's similar to the previous text.
I don't think the jury can read these texts.
That's
Can you,
terrible.
members of
What
the
the
jury?
fuck? Really?
Okay,
It's 2025
maybe you
people.
could assist Deputy Fry.
Holy crap.
We need to focus in.
Oh, they used their 1968 photocopier.
Bring down
Fucking hell.
house lights, does that help at all or make it worse? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but after I pay out your remaining contracts, I won't be able to do them anymore. I did not share all the details with Michael, and I should have. Well. These courts should get with the program.
Best to get it all on there. And finally, Lieutenant Bledsoe, could you please identify the parties in these text messages?
Again, yes, that's the defendant's cell phone number and also identified as the other phone number is identified as Wendy Poteet, which is the sister of the defendant.
What happened in September of 2018?
From our investigation, we learned that, and these texts are an example of how we learned that Michael Cochrane discovered that there were aspects of the business, particularly related to the purchase or investment into contracts and the amount of money that investors were investing versus what he believed, what he had been told by the defendant. And more importantly, the promised return was much larger to those individuals than he had previously believed. And he was extremely upset by that.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I've got my exhibits all out of order.
Okay, take your time.
Your Honor, I'm not presenting what I would ask you marked as State's Exhibit 25.
Okay,
And all of these exhibits have been reviewed by the defense.
Can I just see it
sure.
for a second? I don't have these numbers memorized.
Right.
This will be state exhibits.
Thank you. Very well.
Lieutenant Bledsoe, could you please identify the parties in these text messages?
Yes, that's communication by cell phone between the defendant and Michael Cochrane.
Can you see this, members of the jury? Okay.
And what to you is the significance of these text messages?
3.45 million
The defendant
should
appears to
post
be
tonight
relaying to
at
Mr.
midnight
Cochrane.
I'm
from
sorry, Your Honor, if it appears to be that the
symbol?
witness is speculating.
Sustained. You can rephrase, please, Ms. Aker.
What about these text messages was pertinent to your investigation?
Based on our investigation and reviewing these text messages,
300,000 should post
They
Wednesday,
are
1.25
reflecting
on
amounts,
Thursday,
large amounts of money
724 Monday next
that,
week,
will
2.56 next Friday.
presented to Michael
Jesus.
Cochrane in the context that they will be being paid to their business as part of their contracts with the federal government.
Guess you're not wearing your designer Chanel knickers now, are you, love?
And are these the same parties as the previous text messages?
Yes.
What about Michael's response was significant to your investigation, if anything?
Yes, based on our investigation and again, reviewing these texts, he was, and based on the information that I testified previously about what he had found out, he was trying to find out.
Well, Your Honor, the witness is speculating. The witness is stating something based on hearsay. I object to this.
Well, I think it's based on his investigation, and I think it's proper. I'll allow it. You may continue, sir.
Judge, may we approach on that?
Sure.
Lieutenant Wilson, how did you become involved in this investigation?
It was brought to my attention by Mr. Heinzman.
And what exactly was brought to your attention?
He had received information from one of the troopers at the Beckley Detachment, Sergeant Alan Marsh. And that information indicated that there was potentially financial crimes or a crime or crimes being committed by the defendant.
And what steps did you undertake to begin your investigation?
A wide array of things, just gaining all the background information that we could. Some of it was, obtained through open source. The business had a website that we were able to look into. But at the same time, doing an investigation of that nature, it's important to, especially if it's something that you believe is still ongoing, you want to make sure that you don't, tip your hand. And so we tried to be as covert as possible in exploring the information into the financial crimes. And we were able to...
I'm going to object. This is non-responsive. It's we. The question was, what did you do? Because I don't want any answers based on hearsay.
Okay, Lieutenant Bledsoe, if you'd confine your answer and testimony to the activities that you engaged in yourself.
Yes, sir.
You can continue if you can phrase it within yourself.
Yes, I participated in the investigation in that. I was a participant in assisting in obtaining grand jury subpoenas to obtain documentation, interviewing witnesses, potential witnesses, and just the collection of any and all known documentation or information that we could possibly find related to the allegation.
And just so we're clear, financial crimes were not the only allegation that you investigated, right?
At the beginning, yes, it was. But as the financial crime investigation continued, then I also was involved in investigating the death of Michael Cochrane.
And in investigating the death of Michael Cochrane, what steps did you personally undertake?
Very similar to what I stated earlier. And also met with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for West Virginia once I learned that Mr. Cochrane had not underwent autopsy upon his death.
Did you conduct interviews during the murder investigation?
Yes.
Did you obtain search warrants?
There was a search warrant obtained, but the basis for that affidavit was based on the investigation of the financial crimes.
Were you ever aware of an audit on the Cochranes?
Cochrane.
No.
Were you aware of allegations of an audit?
Yes.
And by whom were those allegations made?
The defendant.
Your Honor, I'd ask this be marked as State's Exhibit number 27, Your Honor.
Very well.
Now, as far as this is concerned, I only want to focus on this text message. Who is this text message coming from?
The defendant. Excuse me.
So did you ever uncover any evidence that an audit occurred?
Absolutely not.
What was the audit used as an excuse for?
For the delay in repaying investors or the business.
I'm going to object. We're back to money laundering trial.
Your Honor, the point of this is to prove that Mr.
Wait a
Cochrane.
minute, you all are talking at the same time.
Yes,
Let me hear from Mr. Victor first. Go ahead.
The answer and the question and the answer suggested the same thing that the court has sustained the objection to already. That is, we're retrying the financial case. And we should, and calling for all kinds of speculation, and we don't need to do this. This has nothing to do with the murder trial. This is irrelevant.
Now, Ms. Akers.
Your Honor, the purpose of this and the relevance is to prove the state's motive, which is that Michael Cochrane did not know that a Ponzi scheme was being run, and that is why we report that the defendant killed him.
I'll allow it. The objection's overruled. Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant Bledsoe, are you aware of anyone by the name of Betsy Britland?
I'm familiar with that name, yes.
Can you tell us who she is
No, I cannot.
and why is that?
Because through this investigation, I learned that that person, the way that it was being presented was not actually a real person or employed in the manner in which it was also being portrayed, or she was also being portrayed to be employed.
Now, was she ever mentioned in the defendant's communications with anyone?
Yes, numerous times.
And who was she purported to be by the defendant?
An employee with the Defense Finance Accounting Services, which was commonly seen throughout documentation reviewed in this investigation as DFAS.
What does DFAS stand for?
Defense Finance Accounting Service, I believe.
What's the significance of the government shutdown that began in December of 2018?
It was a legitimate government shutdown, as most of you may remember, but it also provided that the business of the defendant was not able to provided an excuse as to why the business could not do government contract work or receive payment from the government for contract services.
And do you recall learning of an incident that occurred with Michael at BB&T during that month?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Through the investigation and interview of witnesses, I learned that Michael Cochrane had.
Again, it's based on hearsay and some third-party statement, Judge.
No, I don't think so. I'm going to allow it. The objection's overruled. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I learned that the Cochranes were sent a letter by BB&T Bank here in Beckley, and the nature of that correspondence was to inform them that their bank accounts with BB&T were going to be closed. And in response to that, Mr. Cochrane went to BB&T Bank personally and was very irate, very upset, to the point that his close friend, Chris Davis, had to be summoned to the bank to calm him down.
Object to any characterizations of irate and the witness is speculating.
Overruled.
No.
I'll allow it. Pose another question, please, Ms. Ekman.
Yes, Your Honor. Through your investigation, what was your understanding of the status of the Bank of America account as of the morning of February 6th?
that it was zero balance and that there was no information to suggest that any funding or funds were going to be coming into that account in the future.
And the Cochranes were going to do some work on that account that morning, right?
That is my understanding from this what I learned from this investigation, yes.
We've heard a lot of talk about Michael allegedly using supplements and possibly even steroids. Did you ever locate any evidence to confirm steroid use?
No, it did not.
And we previously introduced a bottle with the FBI labeled enclomiphene citrate. Where did you receive that bottle from?
I recovered that bottle from the residence of Edward and Donna Bolt. Mrs. Bolt is Michael Cochrane's mother, and Edward Bolt is his stepfather.
And did the Bolts tell you where they got that bottle from?
Yes, they told me that they were provided that bottle by the defendant after Michael Cochrane's death.
Do you have any reason to believe that Michael was suffering from any sort of major medical event leading up to February 6th?
Oh, that calls for medical conclusion. He's not entitled to make that opinion.
Sustained.
I withdraw, Your Honor. From your understanding, what was the general health status of Mr. and Mrs. Cochrane the morning of February 6th?
Through the investigation, I learned that the defendant was possibly ill that morning and had sought treatment at the Access.
Why don't the court give me a continuing objection to any of this?
I think that would be appropriate. The court will afford the defense a running objection to all of this testimony, but I'll permit it. I'll preserve the defense exceptions in full. You may continue now, Lieutenant Bledsoe.
Could you ask me that question again?
What was your understanding of the general health status of both Mr. and Mrs. Cochrane the morning of February 6th?
Again, my understanding of the condition of Michael Cochrane and the defendant that morning is based upon what I learned through this investigation, that the defendant was apparently ill that morning and had went to Access Health Clinic to seek medical treatment. And initially that morning, from the information that I've reviewed, Michael Cochrane appeared to be well, but the information also indicates and supports that over the course of the morning, his physical condition deteriorated.
Did the defendant go to the doctor that morning?
Yes.
Are you aware if Michael went to the doctor that day?
No.
Or that morning, I should say.
No.
Through your investigation, especially of the defendant's phone, did you determine if any medications were received that day?
Yes. It indicated that the defendant was given a shot of promethazine, I believe, and possibly promethazine tablets, which was significant when I saw that.
Why was that significant to you?
I'm going to object to that on the other grounds. He's not a medical expert. He cannot testify.
Your Honor, there's no indication that he's testifying to medical expertise until we have his answer.
Well, we don't know what his answer might be, so I'll allow it, and we'll test the waters.
Why was that significant to you?
It was significant because through this investigation, I'd learned that Michael Cochrane had was documented to have a severe allergy to promethazine.
What were the Cochranes supposed to do that morning?
It's my understanding through the review of the information in this investigation that the Cochranes had initially scheduled a flight to fly to Virginia, but that flight had been canceled early in the morning on February the 6th.
And why was that flight canceled?
It was my understanding that the flight was canceled due to the defendant's illness.
Were both the defendant and Mr. Cochrane home that entire morning?
Not initially, no. They had both been out doing different things at some point that morning.
Where did Michael go?
He had went to Starbucks that morning.
And then he returned home?
Yes, that's my understanding.
What were the Cochrane supposed to do when they took their flight that morning?
As my understanding, they were supposed to meet with Mr. Nexon at the Bank of America.
And we previously heard Jennifer Davis testify that she had insulin sent to the defendant's home. Was that your understanding?
Yes.
Why is that important to you?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons. Throughout the investigation, I had not come across any information that anyone in the Cochrane residence was diabetic. Also in an interview that I had conducted with the defendant, she had informed me that Michael Cochrane was allegedly using insulin as part of his bodybuilding regimen. And the fact that she had been to Access Health that very morning, and I'm sure could have requested insulin there.
Judge, please, I'm going to object to all of this speculation and all of this commentary on what my client could have, should have done. Please, would you instruct the jury to disregard this
Yes,
nonsense?
the jury is instructed to regard the last part of this witness's response, please.
Do you recall why the defendant needed the insulin that morning?
As I recall from the text messages with Jennifer Davis, it was something to do with some type of medical treatment that she was supposed to be undergoing.
What was that medical treatment for?
I believe it was something related to cancer treatment.
And throughout the entire course of your investigation, did you ever uncover any evidence that the defendant had cancer?
No.
What did you determine happened next that morning in the Cochrane household?
At some point, Mr. Cochrane suffered a sudden illness, and to the point that he had collapsed in the home.
I object to this, Your Honor, to the display of this inflammatory picture. The witness doesn't know anything about position of the body or the location of the body when this act allegedly happened. I object to it.
I haven't asked him those questions, Your Honor, and I wasn't planning to. I actually would like to know if the witness is familiar with this photograph and who took it.
All right, I'll permit that. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I am familiar with this photograph, and
I object to the word unfortunately. I'm trying to be difficult, but I object to any commentary by this officer.
All right, just answer the question, please, Lieutenant Bledsoe.
yes, I'm familiar with that photograph. It was taken by the defendant.
And how do you know it was taken by the defendant?
It was recovered from her cell phone.
Is it your understanding that at that time she was the only other person in the residence besides Michael?
Yes.
you spoke with the defendant several times, is that correct?
That's correct.
What did she tell you happened to Michael that day?
She provided contradictory information about what had happened over the course of 3 separate conversations.
May we approach on this?
Sure.
Far out. There are so many goddamn things that you think YouTube's a rabbit hole. Fucking Discord. Oh my God. It takes me an hour just to read through what each bloody bot will do, let alone work out how to install the freaking thing. Oh Lord, this is going to take me forever.
I objected to the word contradictory, and I will ask the court to, or contradictory statements, and I'll ask the court to instruct the jury to disregard that statement.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please disregard the witness's last statement pertaining to contradictory statements.
You interviewed the defendant on 3 different occasions, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any recollection of the dates of those interviews?
Yes, I believe the first interview took place on or about April the 8th of 2019. The second interview was on or about May 7th of 2019. And the third was on the following day, May the 8th, 2019.
And did anyone accompany the defendant at any of those interviews?
The first interview was actually done in person with the defendant, and yes, her mother was present. The second and third interviews were done by telephone.
During the first interview, did the defendant tell you or give you her recollection of what happened to Michael the morning of February 6th?
Yes.
Could you elaborate?
Yes. She said that, as I stated earlier, they were in the residence together, and that Mr. Cochrane had suddenly went into the kitchen, and she had heard a noise in there. I think she said it was a thud. She gave the time reference in that interview of 10 a.m. that morning. She went into the kitchen, and Mr. Cochrane was in the floor, and that she had discovered a bottle of enclomiphene citrate on the kitchen counter when she went into the kitchen.
And did she also provide a recollection of events of February 6th during your second interview?
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that for us?
Yes. At that time, she said that the morning of February 6th, that when she and Michael returned home, that they had sat together for approximately an hour, and that Michael Cochrane was doing the best that he had ever done in his life. And that not long after that, he had went into the kitchen, threw up in the sink, and fell and hit his head on the granite countertop and ended up in the floor.
And did she tell you where in the house they were prior to Michael getting up and getting sick?
I believe they were she told me they were in the living room area. And also in that interview, I recall that she stated that she had recovered the bottle of enclomiphene citrate hidden in a cabinet instead of sitting on the kitchen counter as she had previously stated.
And lastly, what was her recollection of events of the morning of February 6th during your third interview with Mrs. Cochrane?
During that interview, she indicated that, again, they had gone separate ways that morning and had returned home, and that upon returning home, Mr. Cochrane had been sleeping on the couch for approximately 45 minutes to an hour, and that when he awoke shortly after that, he went into the kitchen and had collapsed. And also she introduced that in that interview that Michael Cochrane was allegedly using insulin as part of a bodybuilding regimen, and that he readily kept insulin and needles in the home for the purpose of using that in his bodybuilding. I asked her if she had ever injected Michael as part of that to assist him. She indicated that she had not, that he injected himself. And I asked her if he had a common injection site that he preferred to use. And she listed or recited different areas on the body. But the one that stood out to me was she said that his back, or in the back. And that just seemed odd to me.
Yeah.
Now, we know that Michael passed away shortly after that. After he passed away, did TSG continue to operate?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
Through investigation and collection of records and interviewing of witnesses, the business continued, and the defendant continued to try to solicit investors to come into the business. I believe additional investor or two did come into the business.
I'm going to object to this line of questioning. This is post-murder, supposedly. That is irrelevant to this trial.
Your Honor, it's relevant because it proves that Mrs. Cochrane was the one that was running the business, not Michael.
Objections overruled.
In addition to that, the defendant had also went to several local high schools in Raleigh County because it was nearing graduation season, and that she had attempted to present scholarships to students who were graduating. And
Judge, I'm going to object to it now. Now we're retrying the financial case again.
Your Honor, my answer
This
is
has
the same.
nothing to do with what may have happened months before, weeks before, or months before.
Did you care to respond, Ms. Aker?
Your Honor, my response would still be that this is simply being offered as proof that Michael Cochrane was not the one that was running this business. And that is our motive for the defendant killing him.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, but we have never objected to the fact that that my client was part owner of the business. So, and now the alleged victim is dead. So, the business is being run by whoever is left in this business. And so I object on the relevancy of all of that information to the trial at hand.
I'll preserve your objection, but for the reasons stated by the state, I'm going to allow it. The objections overruled.
she had presented those scholarships, which turned out to be worthless. And then in addition to that, she continued to provide the same excuses to investors that
This editorializing, the constant editorializing by this witness.
Your Honor, we can move on.
Something
Yeah,
is
I'll sustain this objection.
There's a federal magistrate that issued a search warrant for the Cochrane residence in this case. Is that right?
That's correct.
Were you the affiant on that?
I was.
Did you participate in the search of the defendant's home?
I did.
And after the search occurred, did you review the property receipt for that search with the defendant?
I did.
Are there any corrections that you want to make to that property receipt?
Yes, there was one that I noticed in the days following the search warrant while reviewing the documents and things related to the search. I realized that one item had not been properly documented on the property receipt. It had been properly identified and photographed during the execution of the search warrant and packaged and taken from the scene, but it was not listed by the agent who was completing the inventory at the scene. It was
What procedure did you follow in reviewing the property receipt with the defendant?
At the conclusion of the search warrant, I asked the defendant to join me in the kitchen area with the table so I could go over the property receipts with her. There were 4 of them, and explain to her what exactly they were and that those were her copies. I believe her mother was present for that as well. And got the document out and for the property receipt for the home that we were in. And when I identified that, the defendant immediately began going through the pages. There's multiple pages to that document. And she stopped and identified an item with her finger and said, this right here, this bottle of insulin, I keep this here at my home for a neighbor's child who's diabetic. And I said, okay, thank you for that information. And we concluded the search warrant and left.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness at this time, and I would ask that states 22 through 27 be admitted into evidence.
All right, are there any defense objections to states exhibits 22 through 27?
No, Your Honor.
States 22 through 27 will all be admitted into evidence. Members of the jury, it's 12 o'clock noon, and that's a perfect time for us to take our break. We will do so, our luncheon recess. Please do not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. Please do not view any portrayals of this case online, on television, or in the newspaper. Please do not listen to anything on the radio. With that constant admonition.
Oh, that's the serenity. That's nice. Oh, feels like someone was yapping in my ears the whole time. Maybe because they were. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't easy. I preferred it when it was spicy with the medical examiner. Yeah. Yep. And I think my brain is scrambled. I'm trying to work out this shit on Discord, but I can't change anything because I'm not down as the owner. So it keeps booting me off all these things. Saying I don't have the permission to do it. It's like, I can't get anywhere. I don't know why he has put himself down. I will work that out. Never mind. Anywho, I think, yeah, it's 4:10 in the morning. I think I'll do the second half of day 5 tomorrow. I don't know. Well, see, initially, no. Tanya doesn't have no idea. So it was Tanya's son, daughter, well, that I asked to do this because he's a gamer. And he jumped on the channel once and I said, can you give me a hand to fix up the... No. A couple of his friends as well. They testified and, yeah. But they didn't know They just said supplements. They had no idea. They've not been identified at all. Well, yeah, there wasn't anabolic steroids. There was steroids, but not anabolic. And the steroids were in the vial that was supposed to be the clomiphene. What was I saying? Yeah. No, so yeah, I asked him to help give me a hand with it because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't. And I'd set it all up myself, basically, from scratch. But I didn't know that you could have bots and stuff that do automatic things. I just used it because I was connected to as the gavel drops, which I must get hold of them again because I've changed the. Oh, shit, how am I going to get the new Discord channel link to them? Yeah, basically I just had it open so that they could upload my lives to their site because that's a huge true crime database almost on there. You can get all of your documents and you can get links to, like, each trial is listed on there, so you can then go and pick up all of the previous media, all of the hearings, documents, they're all linked. It's really handy, and it's in date order. So yeah, I started promoting them on here, and they picked me up and then started promoting me. So that was handy. It was free, because they send all that out to all of the true crime, like the big guys up here, which is really, really handy. So yeah, I asked her son to do it, and he just kept saying he was busy at school, and then his mate Cup God came into my chat on, because he's a YouTuber as well. He's a gamer, so he plays Minecraft, and he offered to help. And Jake said, "Oh no, it's okay, I've got it." And 2 weeks later, I'm like, "Okay, he can help." So I contacted him, and he's in Japan. And that's why I was late for the stream, because he rang me on the Discord channel to explain to me how to work shit. He was just testing a few of the permissions and stuff. So he's created a complete new server, a whole thing from scratch. But now I have to set up all of the permissions in the background to allow certain people here, certain people there, certain functions there. You know, if someone joins, instantly a message gets sent, "Welcome." You know, someone goes, instantly a message says, "Thank you for coming," or, you know, "Sorry to see you go," whatever, that type of thing. So that's all got to be set up in the background, and then it should just it is confusing, but I think of it as a cross between Snapchat and and YouTube, I suppose, but more with messaging. It's hard to explain, but you won't have to understand it if I've got everything in place, if that makes sense. And Cupgod said he will do because you're in the staff channel, whenever something's posted in there, only the staff get it, so you'll get notified, and he's going to do like a training session thing in there for us when he's organised. So yeah, absolutely. Yep. And it's just something, I mean, I'm not really fussed about how big it gets. It's not something that I'm not interested in running 2 monetized things. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't got time. It just makes things easier, and it's something that's really tied into YouTube as such. It's a good place for us as a team. Like, you know, if we have a shitty trial and we all need to get out and have a debrief about it, I can say, all right, anyone who's up for it, I'll be in the general chat after the stream, and we can all get together and have a chat about it. We can have voice call, like the staff has phone calls, like on your computer or on your phone or on the internet. So we can have voice chats, we can have video chats. It's just, there are so many potentials to it to have, especially like verdict watch and stuff, you know, instead of sitting here going, oh, okay, who are we going to watch now? Rah, rah, rah. Well, and it can be interactive too. Like I can create a channel on there, like a heading that says, if any of you find something really, really interesting that you'd like covered, you can put it in there, you know, and get some feedback. That sort of stuff. And if you're interested in, like if I've done a big deep dive on a trial and I've got heaps of like all the Thai stuff, I could create an entire channel with all of these documents and stuff, and you could go ballistic in there and search through them and have a read for yourself. It's really, really handy for people to just have a squiz. So I will get it set up eventually. It's the only time I'm free is 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm too bad. Yep. All right, my lovelies. So, another day, another dipshit. I don't know where Elizabeth went. I messaged her and she was on Facebook, but she didn't get back to me. So, no, she's probably busy. But thank you for joining us. And we will take up day 5 afternoon session tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Thursday. Yes. And I'll be posting the updated what's coming up. I'll be doing that as soon as I get off here. All right. Thanks again for joining. Don't be good at it. Same place, same time, same that channel. Bye.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.